Right now, immigrants with no criminal record, zero criminal record, are the largest group in U.S. immigration detention centers.
Donald Trump and their minions are intent on bringing the government down. And by the way, it will have huge impacts for our economy. Why? Because the federal government is the largest freaking employer in the land.
You're not cashing nobody outside.
So she hasn't learned her lesson yet to keep black women's name out your mouth.
It's easy to do when you're tweeting in the basement in your drawers.
But I was very specific in my criticism.
It is difficult to excuse a shutdown ever because I get the frustration and it's going to hit people. But I think it was important that Democrats held the line here.
Many of them think they are, I won't say many, too many of them think they are running plantations.
Policymakers have a job to do here. The board have a role to play. Also, entertainers have a responsibility and a role to play given their platforms.
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media.
Welcome
home, y'all. I got 99 problems and this show ain't one. That's because it is our 99th episode, and I expect a little more reaction from my co-host when I drop a clever pun.
For the
I didn't know I was allowed to talk.
I
didn't know.
Okay.
I had a muzzle on.
Why didn't we play the clip where Andrew is that guy? Why didn't we bring that clip?
Anyway, it's our 99th episode.
99! Go,
99.
Andrew, go.
99 problems. And Hamilton ain't one.
99
Yes,
episodes.
well,
not
amen
problems.
to that. Amen to that. Okay, so I'm really excited to get into the show today. Before we get to our rundown, I do want to let you know if you're going to be in New York this weekend, come holler at Native Land Pod. We'll be on the main stage at CultureCon. Is Brooklyn in the house? Yes. Is Native Land in the house? Yes. We hope you'll be in the house if you're there. If you're not there, though, you can catch the show. We will post it on our YouTube page, and you can catch it where you get your podcast at iHeart on Monday. So do please tune into that. But it's a lot going on right now. So what are we talking about today? Angela, what you got?
I got a lot of stuff, but I think what we are going to lean into a little bit is why Megyn Kelly is on Serena's head. That's one question I have. I'm going to let y'all get into the other ones because I don't know which ones y'all want to start with. If you miss something, I'll come back.
Megyn Kelly's head. She got after our girl Jamel, and Jamel dragged her clear and cross America the last time. So she hasn't learned her lesson yet to keep black women's name out your mouth.
Keep coming.
Andrew, what you got?
Well, it's easy to do when you're tweeting in the basement in your drawers.
Fair point. Andrew, what you got on
and
that?
that leads
You're
me
not cashing
graciously
nobody
into the
outside.
next topic, which
Sorry, Andrew.
I want to talk about the new threat facing not just democracy, but the new threat that could be coming really straight up our block. What Trump in his new executive memo suggests about where this democracy is going.
Yeah, and you mentioned that earlier on the call, Andrew, and I'm really looking forward to your breakdown on that because I have some questions for you and definitely some thoughts. And when we're talking about where democracy is going, I think right now we are at a complete standstill, literally and figuratively, and that is, of course, because the government shut down this week, and that is going to have a devastating impact for a lot of people. So I definitely want to talk about that. And I do, if there's time, want to get into this Bad Bunny Super Bowl performance, which has taken the group chats, the newscasts, and the internets by storm. So I'm curious your thoughts. I don't know if we all agree about what this means, but I definitely want to get into that discussion with you guys. So,
And of course, questions.
And yes, thank you, Andrew. We will get into your viewer questions. And thank you guys so much for sending those in. And remember, if at any point in the show you hear something that you like, that resonates with you, drop it in your group chat. Send us in a question, a comment if you agree, disagree, but spread the news about Native Land Pod because this is our table as well as it's yours. So welcome home, y'all. Let's get into the show. Okay, before we get into the government shutdown, can I just say really quickly, I want to pass the mic to Angela on this one, actually, but I just want to say before I pass the mic about our show that we did live from the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's annual legislative conference. I have to say thank you all so much for tuning in. I know there were some audio problems, and so we have reposted the show without those audio problems, so please definitely check that out. But a lot of you all just suffered through and listened to the show with the audio problems, so we did repost it for you if you haven't checked that out. definitely please do. Great guest. We sat down with Governor Wes Moore and his wife. But this is what I didn't say this on the call this morning intentionally because I wanted to say it on the show. Our friendship stretches decades at this point. I've known you guys for a while, and I feel like you can take friendship for granted when you know people for a while. Like I can call Angela at 2 a.m. if I want to. Andrew, I can be like, I'm coming to Tallahassee, let's kick it. And when Angela, you gave your acceptance speech, I was so moved. And your father was seated next to me, and I don't know if the viewers will get to hear this. Please watch it on the CBCF annual legislative conference show. But when you closed out the speech, your father was saying the words with you. Because of course you closed it out, the Black Power anthem, and he didn't even say it like he wanted to erupt in applause. Like he said it like casually and was just looking at Angela. I was like bursting inside. We were all trying not to choke up. It was the end of the show. I wanted to stand up and applaud. But Papa Rye was just sitting there like, yeah, like what else she supposed to? That's who I raised. That's what it is.
I taught her that.
Right. It was such a beautiful moment. I sent that speech to everybody. I've been telling everybody to watch it. I was on Dr. Carr's show this week on Sirius XM. I talked about it on that show. So I just want to say, it was one of those moments where it's like, I take for granted that I get to be friends with people I'm fans of. I get to be friends with people who I admire. And I'm not going to lie. I was a little mad when she was reading that speech. It's like I feel when I ask Michael Harry, he's up writing all day and then he comes and sends me what he wrote. And I'm like, you wrote that today, just in one try. That's what you did. When she was that speech, I'm like, please tell me it took you 6 months to write that because it would take me 6 months to write that. So I'm thrilled. And I had to say that. I didn't want to say it on the call. I wanted to say it to you in front of our audience. So super dope.
Cosign. I think I said to you that night, twice or 3 times, I was really pierced.
Yeah.
I felt that. And when you're used to giving and certainly being on the receiving end of speeches, you can become numb sometimes to the words that come out of people's mouths. But for you, Angela, it's different because we know you. You don't traffic in insignificance. If you state it's a thing. Mm-hmm. And it had resonance. It really did. That night, you and a few others had particular impact, but yours stand out to me. And there's no more deserving person of that distinguished honor from Saturday. My only regret is that whole room didn't get to hear what we got to hear. But they can hear it now if they go to Native Land Pod and listen
where
to
they should
the
subscribe.
Playback.
If I can for a moment, and I know we're probably going to get into the government shutdown, given the fact that now the government is in fact shut down. But I just wanted to shout this out to you guys. I ended up having an all-star studded cast yesterday on Tuesday for the solo pod. Congresswoman Maxine Waters, where I worked for my first political job, was with her, was on talking about the shutdown. Jasmine Crockett joined us as well to talk about the shutdown, but also talking about the fear she experiences right now and in real vulnerability in ways that really just touch me, because I feel like our sister always has to show up in strength. So I'm so grateful that we were able to cultivate a safe space for her to really share how she feels in this moment. But also there was another woman who we love dearly on this show who joined us on the live show Saturday, but had to leave. Otherwise, we certainly would have given her the opportunity to also share the remarks she'd prepared, and that's Joteka Edie, who received the ALC Co-Chair's Phoenix Award. She shared a beautiful speech. I know that it will drop on socials Wednesday. If you are listening to this later, it will drop Wednesday. But I want to shout her out too, because her speech is remarkable. So I want to thank y'all, because none of the work that I'm doing would be possible without your grace, without understanding, without leaning in with us. And so y'all are my Phoenix Award winners every day. So thank you so much. But let me tell you who is not the Phoenix Awards winner. Y'all's president. Because why the government shut down and why they trying to blame it on Democrats, on HUD websites and everywhere else? Tiff, get into it.
Let's get into it. Well, you brought up that you got to talk to Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett this week on your solo pod. So I definitely, if you don't mind, I want to hear a piece of what she said. If people want to hear that whole conversation, of course, they can check it out on our YouTube page. I have not listened to the whole thing yet, so I would love to hear what Congresswoman Crockett had to say. But I just want to set the frame a little bit, and forgive me if this is redundant, because I'm sure you guys got into it a bit this week. But I wanted to make the point that this is not a normal shutdown. And I want to draw the distinction of what would have happened had Democrats accepted the congressional resolution. It would have essentially given a green light to Donald Trump to continue his cuts to PBS. It would cuts to foreign aid programs. It would be a green light to his big, beautiful bill that they call it, which essentially gives the richest Americans tax cuts, which would, don't for a minute doubt it, it would be financed by cuts to Medicaid, Medicare. I have members of my family on both. Food stamps. I have members in my immediate family on food stamps. Clean energy resolutions. This bill would also make it harder for Americans to afford health care. And so the Democrats were calling, and you guys know I am not a spokesperson for the Democratic Party. I happen to be a voter who votes Democrat. But this is not in any way an ode to the party. I'm just giving information. It is difficult to excuse a shutdown ever, because I get the frustration and it's going to hit people. But I think it was important that Democrats held the line here. They don't control the House or the Senate. And so when you hear the GOP talking points that this is the Schumer shutdown or this is the Democrat shutdown, impossible. When they first passed the bill, the big beautiful bill first passed the Senate last July, it only required 51 Republican votes. Now they need it more. So Democrats all of a sudden became really important to pass this legislation. Now, what it means now that the government has shut down, and in my opinion, it's essentially been shut down for almost 9 months now. The government hasn't been functional. They've consolidated power to the executive branch. So we really haven't seen a functional government. But now the shit has hit the fan. So the shutdown is expected to put at least 40% of the federal workforce, about 750,000 people, on unpaid leave. But don't get it twisted. They will not be the only people impacted. The GOP claims to be the party that supports the military. Well, active duty military service members will not receive a paycheck during the government shutdown. The White House has also threatened mass layoffs. This is a reduction in workforce and federal employees. This is after they've already laid off so many people, given furlough notices in the case of a shutdown. Well, some people argue this is illegal. And this has been basically a threat from the Office of Management and Budget Director, Russ Vought, who is a problem. His whole career was based on combating CRT, critical race theory. So that should let you know what he is. Food assistance programs will also be impacted. SNAP, the Supplemental Nutritional Program. Again, I have members in my family who are on this. WIC, the program for women, infants, and children. Both of these programs are expected to rapidly run out of funds. Social Security, the VA, and other benefits will continue. However, there will still be some delays in services, such as processing applications. Air traffic control and TSA, they're considered essential, so they will continue to go to work, but they will not be paid. And I don't know if you guys remember when this happened in 2018, 2019, increasingly air traffic controllers began to call in sick, which had a ripple effects on travel across the country. FEMA will keep functioning, but funds are also running low. So when you consider what this means at the state level, I'll take Louisiana, for example, huge Black population there. They have a program, the National Flood Insurance Program. It was managed by FEMA. It's been temporarily extended by Congress more than 30 times since 2017. It was created to provide insurance for those who don't have a private option. Well, its funding expired at 12:01 a.m. midnight on Wednesday of this week. So these are going to be real problems. Let me tell you who will still continue to get paid. Members of Congress and the president himself will continue to collect paychecks. More than 200,000 members of law enforcement will continue to work. That's according to Homeland Security Director and the puppy killer, Kristi Noem. ICE will continue their work as usual, unfortunately. So we're looking at really dangerous times, you guys. And I, for myself, just to be transparent, I'm worried about my own funding, because for the people in my family who receive these benefits, if they go away, then that means I will have to supplement what they spend. And so on SNAP benefits, you already can't buy things like cleaning products, paper products, hot food, things like that. But that's okay, because I can supplement those things for my family when it's needed. But when their entire benefits go away, then I will have to supplement government their entire needs, from deodorant, toothbrush. Think about everything you use on a daily basis, to the foods you eat 3 meals a day. And I'm not going to make my family, eat less or suffer through this. It will cost me more money. And I imagine that a lot of people we talked about this last week, Andrew, who are the people who made it, so to speak, this will cast a dark shadow across a lot of people's finances. And I just don't know where we go from here. So I just wanted to put that in context.
That's right.
For our viewers, and open it up to you guys to see.
That's real.
Yeah, like WTF, what's going on?
To build off your example with the catastrophe fund, the supplemental I would like to call it the insurer of last resort, meaning if no other insurance is available to you, the government's the insurer of last resort for Louisiana. You think about hurricane season is not over.
Right.
I'm in Florida, so I stay pretty apparent and aware of it. And say a storm were to come through during this period of time, any losses to real estate, anything that was previously insured is now uninsured. The real cost for any of that passes directly to the individual owner themselves, right? So you lose a house, you out a house. If you want one back, you got to pay for it, full sale yourself. On the health insurance piece of this, we've already seen across the country people's premiums. Healthcare premiums, the piece that you have to pay before insurance kicks in, has gone up 40%. In some cases, even more drastically. That's where the Democrats have laid down the stake in the sand. They've said, basically, please reauthorize the incentives that existed during, frankly, up to this point since Obamacare's adoption, the American Affordable Healthcare Act's adoption. All those went away. And so they said, look, for our cooperation, for our votes to get to the 60 vote threshold you need in the Senate to pass cloture, we will give you those votes if you put back those incentives so that health insurance can remain somewhat affordable for those who are already on the American Affordable Care Act. And of course, the Republicans have resisted. The president resists. They are insisting on moving $1 trillion from working people, working class Americans. They have shifted $1 trillion, the largest wealth transfer in American history, from all of us to the top 1% who aren't begging for it and don't need it and absolutely don't deserve it. So they've chosen their side here. They're not choosing keep government open versus closed. That's not it. Tiffany, you laid it out perfectly. It's been closed. They've been shuttering the government. Russell Vought's a threat to the Democrats. You vote with us or we will fire more people. That ain't real. And I'm glad the Democrats knew that threat was not real. Why? Because they've already shown us they're committed to laying off the federal workforce. They're committed to destruction of the government as we know it. And whether Democrats were to acquiesce, accept that challenge and then give them their votes or not, Russell Vogt, Donald Trump, and their minions are intent on bringing the government down. And by the way, it will have huge impacts for our economy. Why? Because the federal government is the largest freaking employer in the land. Nothing bigger, nothing greater, nothing larger, nothing employing more people than the federal government and its subcontractors.
Oh, and those contractors won't get paid, by the way. The contractors, and they will not get back pay when the government functions again.
Unless they're defense.
Yeah.
No, but except for defense.
I wanted to just flag, I actually don't have as much to say on government shutdown. Today, on Tuesday, we did a solo pod on the government shutdown. I filibustered for 30 minutes. So I feel like I said all that I need to say there. Y'all, please run that thing back. And speaking of running that thing back, let's go ahead and hear what Jasmine Crockett has to say.
So as it relates to the shutdown, listen, the last time we had a shutdown, it was Trump, the longest shutdown we've ever had. Right. It was under Trump. So don't get caught up in this nonsense that it's the Democrats' fault. You know, the bad part is that people don't understand civics, or they listen to people that are gaslighting them. And the facts are the facts. The Republicans control everything. Now, there are people that want to talk about the filibuster. We can talk about the filibuster if you want to talk about the filibuster, but the reality is that y'all control everything. You control every single lever right now. So when you're in control, that means that it is up to you to figure out how it gets done.
Wow.
Yeah. So yes, I think I feel complete on the shutdown.
Can I just say for Jasmine Crockett, who is a hero, and I stay in her corner. She's not perfect. She is perfectly imperfect, and that's what makes her accessible and somebody that people want to replicate and be inspired by. But her point around Lord, I just lost my thread.
Well, you know why? Because we should probably move on to the next topic.
No, because I know
Andrew said no.
Yeah, because I remember you wanted to get to this. True, and people are, the only reason I'm saying that, Angela, is because people are going to be devastated by this. And I know that you had topics on how Jasmine Crockett and her humanity have been coming up. Yes. And just in case you all haven't, the reason why Angela's saying move on is because her solo pod was an hour and a half. Angela, is that right? With Congresswoman
my
Maxine
solo pod
Waters?
was out. Yes. Maxine Waters. Then I filibustered for a bit. Jasmine's team had a little bit of some technical difficulties, but it was so worth the wait. And Andrew, one of the things that I think is significant here as we navigate through this show, through this shutdown, through this administration, is the ways in which folks who are in elected office and are public servants, what you have to do to put your lives, your physical body, your emotional health on the line. And I think we were talking about just being concerned about our dear sister Jasmine and making sure that we're covering her, especially when, the Laura Loomers of the world are saying all kind of crazy stuff, questioning intellect, degrading them, calling them out their name for doing nothing but protecting Black folks, and what's in the best interest of the whole of the American people, whether or not the whole of the American people receive it or not. So, I think to that end, we have to find multiple places to share, to be advocates in whatever our lanes are, to utilize our platforms and our talents to facilitate change in this country. We have to use every tool at our disposal, not just one solitary tool. I don't know if that reminded you, but if not, that's a hell of a transition.
Listen, Angela, you know what? I should have left a dead thing alone because it was a technical point and I completely lost the thread. So guess what?
Okay.
We moving on.
All right.
But I would say to that end,
what you said.
Using the talents is Bad Bunny.
Yes, and we have a viewer question who brought that up. So, but to close out, I just want to say for those of you,
I love y'all. I love y'all for y'all's pivoting in the cover. It's really humorous, and I love you for it.
Well, you guys cover me too.
We all cover each other. But I just want to say before we move on, for all of you who are impacted by this government shutdown, who are now worried about how you're going to pay your mortgage, how you're going to feed your children, how you're going to take care of family near and far, I too am in that same situation with you. I understand. And we will be continuing to talk about it here on Native Land Pod. If you do want a deeper dive though, please do revisit Angela's solo pod. It was an hour and a half just on the government shutdown. So we're not breezing past this. It's just that it has been talked about a lot. So thank you for that.
We keep going from crisis to crisis.
Yes, exactly.
This is a manufactured crisis that they do at our expense over and over again, and that should not be lost on you. And just in time, Andrew's point.
Andrew got it.
You got it. So this was the point. It was. Usually when there's a president and a Congress, they do everything that they can to avert a shutdown.
That's right.
Why? Because they know of the drastic harm that it causes people. This administration, the incentives are perverse. They're not incentivized to reduce harm. They're not incentivized to keep government open and accessible to the people. This president has determined that he is really loyal only to him at this point. As far as he's concerned, either there will be no more elections or he won't stand for another election for president, and therefore his poll numbers don't matter. And I wanted to bring in the point around these poll numbers that came out this week, which show that pretty much, although underwater and unpopular, the president's support amongst Republicans remains. 9 out of 10 Republicans in this country still approve of his job. Wow. And so we've all been talking about and waiting for the reasonable ones to show up. We're the ones who are the middle of the road. Where are the folks who are reasonable in this moment and can see the harm that's being caused? I guess the illumination I had, and I knew it all along, but confirmed reading these numbers this week, is that there isn't, that they are wholesale signed up to the full-scale agenda. So the tactics that they may find unpleasant along the way might just be just that, unpleasant. But as it relates to the goal, they're wholesale, fully committed to the destruction that Donald Trump is sowing throughout this country, throughout the world, certainly throughout this government. So I just wanted to disavow us of the fact that this is in any way a real normal moment. Mm-hmm. We've got perverse incentives of a guy who actually gets the pleasure off of people doing bad, of people suffering. In so many ways, that is the point of what they're doing. And to the extent that there are reasonable people, I can't see it.
Yeah.
And these polls confirm it. They don't exist.
And sometimes people can be so bad, it's good.
Well, I think Angela's talking about, I just want to point out, though, factually, I'm pretty sure you're referring to the Reuters poll there, Andrew. And
Ipsos. And
yes, the Reuters Ipsos poll. But yes, let's move on. Because I think
speaking of so bad, it's good.
Yeah, Angela really wants to move on to this subject. So we have a question. Let's hear from a viewer to shift us into the next subject.
Hey, Native Land Pod. This is Megan from Cleveland, Ohio. My question has to do about, it was recently announced that Bad Bunny would be performing at the Super Bowl. And I just want to know, first of all, does anyone even remember Kendrick's performance? With everything happening, everything that has happened, what really did that performance do? I don't know that we have more Black ownership in the NFL. I don't know that we have more Black head coaches on the field in the NFL. So we have these moments, and it just seems like we're the only ones celebrating them. They just seem performative. I don't know that they really do anything. I don't know what movement it actually makes for our community. So now with Bad Bunny performing, do we care? What are we, do we have an opinion on it at all? Are we excited? I don't know that I'm excited. They're letting us get up there and tap dance for them, but we've always got up there and tap dance for them. So just wanted to know you guys' thoughts on it. Love Native Land, been a fan since day one. Take care, you guys.
Thank you, Megan, for that question. We have gotten your feedback that we don't specifically answer your questions all the time. So I know, Angela, you have a lot of thoughts on this subject.
Well, first, let me just say this, because I think that people will relate. Say, Drake, we remember Kendrick's performance. Like, not only do we remember Kendrick's performance, it is still viral right now. You can walk up to somebody and say, da, 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 and they know what it means. Like, it wasn't just the song, it was the way that he challenged the fabric of America in his performance. And I think that I'm gonna say something that may be controversial to some of y'all. I think that one of the best things that could have happened to the Super Bowl halftime show is that Rock Nation took it on, and they have the ability to challenge the viewer, the typical NFL viewer, the folks who are in those stands. Overwhelmingly, we cannot afford those tickets. Some parts of us can't afford those tickets, but those shows are for the viewing audience at home, to challenge. For some to uplift, and for some to be able to have an amen corner. While there has been, I think particularly this year, over the last 365, a growing divide, even more so than normal, between the Black and brown communities, I think that it is very powerful that Bad Bunny has the opportunity in the midst of what is happening to Latinx folks to have that stage. I really do. And I look forward to what he does there. I don't believe that movements are built absent arts, whether they are the fine arts or performing arts. I think that they are built and inspired and carried through the arts. To the point where I would ask for some artists to come together to do a song around State of the People. and that they would agree to do something like that. It is, I mean, there's a reason why We Are the World had the impact it had. Even if you look back to Jason's lyric and there was a black male chorus, you will know, like, there are moments, self-destruction. There are always moments where the arts carry the movement, carry the demands of the people. And I think that this isn't any different. And if it can be on a stage that is so well funded, so well choreographed, it's so overwhelmingly seen, I think that's exactly where the arts belong.
That's real. I appreciate
and
that
can
point.
I just say this to our dear sister from Cleveland? I know that this is not answering your question, but I do want to acknowledge your skin is popping, sis. Glowing.
I love it. Shout out, Megan. I will say, to answer very directly, halftime performances are performative by definition. They are really intended. No, I mean this by the sense of, I think of late we've gotten very high-minded about our expectations for these kinds of performances, but largely, it's to entertain. And it's only of late and at very selective moments in American history have we seen them catapult to something more, to be statement pieces, to be thought pieces, to be queries of the mind and of people who are watching, to be moments of protests, but also moments of unity on occasion. They are also, in my opinion, representation matters. It matters to see yourself, your experience reflected. And it matters especially on an occasion where there are more eyes on the television screen on one single set of programming, which hasn't, frankly, happened in this country for 30, 40 years. Back in the day when there were only 4 networks, 40 million people were watching the same show at the same time. There was a common American experience that doesn't exist anymore in our country, by and large. This is probably one of those very few occasions where all eyes, or as many eyes as you can imagine, are on one set of programming. And I like the fact that my white colleagues, my black colleagues, brown sisters and brothers out there, so on and so forth, are by and large experiencing this very same moment at the same time. And oddly enough, many of them still walking away with very different impressions and piercings and evaluations of what that thing meant to them. Usually the haters say, that was boring, that didn't need to happen, when did we become so political? And then those who are affirming of the performances and what they signify by virtue of meaning are championing it. Man, that was hot. That was wild. Did you understand the meaning of that? And wholesale incumbent newspapers are writing thought pieces on what was intended by each piece of art and choreography, as it unfolded. I just think that's powerful. There are very few moments anymore in this country where we have shared experience, even if our interpretations of that experience are different, and representation matters.
I take a completely different view than both of you. I acknowledge your points, and I definitely think they're I don't disagree with them. I just have a different view. I kind of agree with the viewer, my sister from Cleveland, because I don't think she was saying that people don't remember Kendrick's performance in the sense that we've forgotten about it. I understood her to be saying, what did it change? What policies did it change? And I certainly understand her point in, okay, so they get the benefit of our eyes, these billionaire NFL owners who largely support Donald Trump and this administration and his policies, who have contributed to him. They get the benefit of Black and brown talent at their halftime show. We increase their viewership when we watch the games and when we watch the halftime show. Even if he is there making a political statement and a political point, the question I'm asking is who's really winning and who's really losing? Just for background, for people who may not be familiar with the whole Bad Bunny saga, he did a 31-day residency in San Juan. He bypassed coming to the mainland. It's driving me crazy because in the newscast, you'll hear him say, well, he bypassed coming to the U.S. Well, Puerto Rico is a part of the United States. He bypassed coming to the mainland because of the mass ICE deportations, which are, of course, unconstitutional, which are, of course, authoritarian. And he, in an interview with ID Magazine, said, I'm not doing my concerts there. ICE could literally be outside of my concert. So I applaud him for taking that stance. He left a lot of money on the table. He was principled about it, and I really appreciate that. I, too, question what have we really gained since Roc Nation took over the halftime show, other than some super dope halftime shows. Where I struggle, I think, is what you guys are saying, and what I think you guys are saying is messaging matters. Imagery matters at this time, and I think that's so true. That is definitely essential. This is a large audience. So given that, I hope he goes super hard. I hope he is disrespectful at the halftime show. Because I think that's what it would take. I remember there were people saying they didn't get Kendrick Lamar. What was he saying? They didn't get the performance. If you ain't get it, it wasn't for you. I've seen a lot of videos in my feed of people sitting there like trying to learn Spanish, and they're like me trying to learn Spanish so I can understand everything for the halftime show. People are definitely excited about it, but I think her point stands. Like, we haven't seen this increase in Black coaches. We haven't seen any NFL policy change, nor have we seen these halftime performances push any policy outside of the NFL even. So I think it's a fair criticism. And I think it is our job. It is our responsibility as consumers of Roc Nation's music and as consumers of the NFL to continue to push them to give us more tangible change. Because I would even say, even if there were more Black NFL coaches, like, okay, it was kind of like around the protests around Colin Kaepernick. I'm like, that's all we asking for is for this one Black man to get a job. Like, we need institutional change. Go ahead, Andrew.
I want to ask you, when did halftime performances and the entertainers who entertained us during that time, like, get tasked with the responsibility of creating public policy change? When did you think that? Because
I don't think it's their responsibility to create policy change. I think at the time that Roc Nation took over the halftime show, that is what centered. That's why it happened, because people were critical of the NFL. It was on the heels of them completely disrespecting and sidelining and robbing Colin Kaepernick of employment and opportunity. And so when it was beneficial for them to turn something over to a Black man, that's when they did it. And so the pushback from the Black community was like, oh, hold up, what's going on? I mean, Colin Kaepernick wasn't supportive of the move. So people were saying, what are we getting out of this? And so that was, and Angela can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was their response. Like, no, we're going to, make this a moment, make this a movement. These halftime shows will be a movement. I think that's when the halftime show became political, or the expectation of it was to be political and give pushback. But I'm open if I have that wrong. No,
but to that extent, I would say the shows of late actually have been more political, and they have provoked and awoken real conversation and debate within the American people. And I actually think, like, that's the change that even if it draws us to our corners, at least we start to hear people articulate what's driving them to one corner or another. We are so bereft of honest dialogue anymore as a country. I mean, I used to think that Republicans had a set of values around. For instance, they used to be the party of don't tread on me. And now they're anything but that anymore, right? Yet they're still claiming and, shrouding themselves in the American flag. And I'm like, how dishonest can you be? Either you lying to you, because I know you've been lying to me. I didn't expect the truth from you, but to themselves. And so I appreciate what dialogue can be sparked there, because in truth, public policy change around diversity and inclusion doesn't change people's hearts and minds.
Yeah.
It's culture that changes hearts and minds. It's culture that largely causes you to think differently about a thing, or to be pricked in a way that is not totally offensive, and therefore you might be open to what the critique is. I think that's kind of what art helps to
I don't think we're in that
society.
I don't think we're dealing with those people. We're dealing with MAGA extremists. We're dealing with cult members.
I agree with that by and large. For those of us who are political, I agree with that by and large. But again, half the country ain't voting. And the majority of support that we need to be having out there is amongst each other, is with community. And so to the extent that this is seed conversation that wasn't happening before, I mean, really, before we were talking about somebody titty being out, right? And Timberlake getting off while somebody else is carrying the load. And now people are talking about what is the symbolism and the meaning behind this, that part. Wow. taking ownership of the flag, but in a different way. Now I feel more connected to my country and to my community. I just think that's.
I think our side is talking about that.
I wouldn't undervalue that.
I think we've always been talking about that, though. Like I agree with the caller or the viewer's point. What exactly is this changing? What institutional changes has the NFL made? And what changes do we think these performances make other than enriching the pockets of billionaires who support this administration and their policies? What I would like the audience to know, because of Bad Bunny bypassing the United States and why he is right now, immigrants with no criminal record, zero criminal record, are the largest group in U.S. immigration detention centers. That's according to data released by our own United States government. So when we're looking at that, I can understand why people are saying, I don't know if, I'm excited about this Bad Bunny performance more than I am outraged about what's actually happening in the country. But I don't want to be a hypocrite. I will be watching the halftime show. And go ahead, Angela.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, and I think this is the thing, right? It's like, we have somebody or an entity that is willing to push the buck with these folks because they have some influence. They've been able to shift. Folks would be mad as hell if it was Kid Rock. You know what I mean? So now it's like, oh, well, these racist NFL owners, of which there are many, right? So you still have the NFL running this show, but the owners still have outsized influence. Many of them think they are, I won't say many, too many of them think they are running plantations. And so when you have that ideology and you have somebody willing to push back on this, yes, it is just the halftime performance. And yes, it is the halftime performance. That is the very thing that if it were not these artists that we actually do support politically, or we do feel like we're aligned with them on social issues or social justice causes, we would be mad if it was somebody else like the
Taylor Swift.
Any of the artists.
No diss to her.
But Taylor is more aligned with us politically and on social issues than some others.
That's true.
But I do think Bad Bunny makes a different statement than Taylor does. And so, yeah, like, I think that it's interesting that it's like you damned if you do, damned if you don't hear. The other thing that I'll say, without saying too much, is I really wish people knew the backstory of what happened and how they got to doing the halftime shows to begin with, of what their actual intention was. There wasn't a real different end goal than what the rest of the community was, and that was for Cap to get on a team. But I wonder for us, if Cap getting on the team would have been sufficient. If Cap got on a team, would we still have the issues around the lack of Black head coaches in the NFL? Would we still have an issue with the fact that only 17% or 18% of coaches look like us, despite the fact that 75% of the players look like us? So I really want us to also challenge our own hypocrisy here, and I'm saying us Black folks, because it is far deeper than that, but I recognize and understand the symbolism. We have to decide if the symbols are the substance or if we're going to continue to push for substance even when we get some of the symbols. And I think that it is not either or, it is probably a both and approach, but we got to figure out, what is the symbol that we care the most about, and when we're going to challenge them for upholding the symbol but dissing us on everything else. Or should we be doing both? And I think this is probably one of those things where we should do both. We've got the win on the halftime show. It is not sufficient. And I think the Rock Nation family understands that. And certainly everybody on this podcast understands this. Yeah. There is another viewer question here. And since you brought up Ice, Tiff, maybe we should tap in there. But I heard Andrew take a breath, Casey.
No, I think we shouldn't overload people with doing everything. We all have our jobs. We all have our roles to play. Policymakers have a job to do here. The board of these multilateral corporations who are sponsors to the commercials that largely line the pockets of the networks and these owners, they have a role to play. Also, entertainers who are really invited to just entertain have a responsibility and a role to play given their platforms. And I don't want to overload any one side of this with more than what their reasonable and righteous responsibility ought to be in the moment.
Well, I mean, I would push back on that a little bit. I think Rock Nation became the, Jay-Z and Roc Nation became billionaires off of us supporting his music, his projects early on. So I think Black people are always righteously entitled to challenging what he's done with that level of responsibility. I would never.
That's not entirely true, though. Like he did not become a billionaire just off of streams. He became a billionaire off of several other business deals.
But he became a billionaire
who own the NFL
off of,
teams?
I'm not saying he does own the NFL team, but he did. I'm not saying every billion he got was from us, but I'm saying from the support that Black people gave him that put him in a position to flip that money a few times. 100%.
I'll say that. I'll agree with that.
100%.
I'll agree with that.
People,
but that was the finesse of a smart businessman investing in other businesses.
I'm not taking that away from him, but he wouldn't have been able to do that much if he didn't have the support of Black people. So they didn't say we can't challenge him and what he's doing with that level.
I'm not saying that. Challenge it, but I think you should listen to the facts of their responses, though, too.
I think that's true. I think, unfortunately, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately or not, but Colin Kaepernick was, vocal about his thoughts on the partnership, and that's what we heard. And I think the imagery that we've seen, from them dining with, the Trump kids and people,
and right after that, announcing Bad Bunny would be the halftime performer.
Yeah, so that doesn't wait for a lot of people, though. That does not wait for a lot of people. I think people have a right to be outraged and angry about those things.
They can be, but I want them to be outraged and angry with facts. So even the comment just now about they were dining with the Trump kids. Let's just put some clarity around this.
Yeah, that's fair.
They are some of the founding members of the Reform Alliance, which was a bipartisan effort to help reduce people's sentences, make sure that justice reform actually happened in this country. Even the Koch brothers were a part of these efforts with Hakeem Jeffries just a few years ago. Now it feels like 500. But the Reform Alliance holds a gala, a casino event every year where people on every side of on all parts of the political spectrum participate in that event. So the Trumps, Jared Kushner, whose father was also incarcerated, and therefore he leaned very heavily into justice reform efforts in the last Trump administration, is now involved in the Reform Alliance, and they participated in the most recent event. It was Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner.
And the reason
his
his father was
now the ambassador to France.
Exactly. The reason Jared Kushner's father was incarcerated is a whole other thing. But thank you, because I think that that the facts do matter around that. But if we're saying imagery matters in the halftime show, then imagery definitely equally matters when you are seated at the table with Jared Kushner at a time such as this when things are going on. I think it is perfectly fine for people to question, wait a second, this doesn't feel right to me, or wait a second, what more are you doing? What more should we be expecting of you? It's not a diss to anybody, but I was talking to one of our luminaries. I don't think he would want me to say his name, but I was talking to one of our luminaries of the time, asking his thoughts, and he said, listen, at the end of the day, a billionaire is a billionaire is a billionaire. And so I think sometimes I do question that. I look at the people who in our community who maneuver at that level, and there does sometimes feel like a disconnect, but I also think it's fair what you guys are saying about imagery mattering, and about what's realistic, what we can expect, and should we be celebrating the things that they are doing. I think everything on the table, I think, is fair. I just identify more with what the viewer, what she was raising. I think it's a fair question to ask.
The only thing I know we got to go on is simply say we could disrupt the lives of these billionaire racist owners, too many of which right now own teams and think they run in plantations for sure. If we decided to take our eyes off the screen every Sunday, every Friday, if we were to remove because the accountability has to flow all ways.
Yeah, that's true.
It isn't just Jay-Z. It ain't just the owners. It is the fact that they wouldn't have what they have. The NFL would not be the expanding, profound industry, disruptive industry that it is for media and so much else if our eyeballs were not on it, if we were not watching, if we weren't attending games and buying tickets. And the truth is if we, the regular folk, were to remove our support vis-a-vis putting our eyes on it, therefore driving money toward it, then that wouldn't be the thing. Ross wouldn't be a thing, right? So accountability is right. I was only simply arguing not just what's possible or what's reasonable, but to say that I do have expectations for everybody along this pipeline. And it doesn't, I was simply saying it doesn't sit with Bad Bunny himself to accomplish all those missions through his performance. It doesn't sit with Jay-Z by himself. It doesn't sit with any one of those constituencies by themselves. But the most impactful constituency are those of us who are watching.
I love that. And can I just say, I really love this conversation. I didn't expect this conversation to go all these different directions. I knew there was daylight, but it really is a nuanced conversation. I don't think we would have gotten this conversation anywhere else on the cable news. It would have been a 5-minute thing. So I really love the nuanced perspective that we all bring and would love to hear from our viewers. Please weigh in with what you all think. I love what you said, Andrew. And I'm not dismissing people who love football, because when this was happening, I remember y'all know I'm a big, huge Game of Thrones head. And I was trying to think, like, damn, what if it was a call to boycott, not watching Game of Thrones? How gangster would I be? Like, am I gonna miss that Game of Thrones finale? I don't know. So I get that perspective, but I like that
we've seen it. It may have been worth it.
Exactly. But I appreciate the perspective that you're like, responsibility doesn't sit with any one of us. For everybody who's out there watching the football game but criticizing the halftime show, like, what are you doing in your role of responsibility? So I love that.
That's fair.
But a lot of this stems from Bad Bunny not bringing his tour to the mainland because he said, ICE could be right outside his concerts. And I know we have a viewer who has a question about that. So let's take a listen.
What's up, Native Land? It's Larry, once again, in Dallas, soon to be in Canada once I move next month. But I want to talk to you guys about the Bad Body Bill that Trump just signed into law. This is going to give ICE an astounding amount of funding. Not only would dollar for dollar make it the largest governmental agency, but also, I believe I read, the 16th largest military power on the planet. That's terrible. I see this going horribly, not only for immigrants, but for everybody that dissents against this fascist agenda. I wanted to know from you guys, what are some steps of disruption or mutual aid that people can do to combat ICE? And or the undoubtedly problematic consequences that this new Gestapo force is going to have on average citizen. Looking forward to hearing your perspectives. I love y'all, and welcome home.
Welcome home.
He said he moved to Canada.
He said he out here.
That.
Yeah, that's right.
He got a question, though. Don't get sidetracked, guys, because we don't answer that question.
I know.
Go ahead, get it, friend.
Well, my thought is to be disobedient. What I've seen from, and this is just like videos that unfortunately you don't find on legacy media, but you've seen videos from different outlets that find their way to social media and on different news sites, where communities overwhelmingly show up and stop ICE from taking somebody. They make them unwelcome to the point where ICE literally backs out. They outnumber them in droves. They videotape them. ICE is now attacking people who are videotaping them. This week, they just attacked a journalist. This is not a normal thing. I mean, we are literally normalizing masked men taking people off the streets and disappearing them. Reporting from CNN cites that authorities in at least 3 states have arrested individuals allegedly impersonating ICE officers at a time when real ICE agents have, ramped up their disappearing acts. And it's adding to an existing fear of law enforcement. I said earlier in the show that more people who have committed no crimes whatsoever, they now outnumber these allegedly violent criminals. There have also been thousands of people since these deportations happened. More than 1,000 people have disappeared. We just don't know where they are. They've disappeared from the daily body count. So imagine people can't find, their loved ones. The superintendent of schools in Iowa, for all the people who said, this ain't our problem, we minding our business, this Black man who was born in Guyana, a pillar of the community, was disappeared by ICE. And so this is a dangerous, scary time. And the only thing that's going to stop an authoritarian regime is disobedience. I had a chance to talk with Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley about this during the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. And she gave really good advice on this about protecting ourselves and our community. So I'm not telling people to go out there and get shot and, confront ICE officers with violence. But I do think when we do this in droves and in numbers and demand, accountability accountability and respect for our communities and show up for one another. If there's 18 agents going after one person and it's 30 people in the neighborhood, then yes, protect that one person. If you see somebody getting taken, get out your phone, ask their name, who can you call, to let them know that you were taken. It's getting to the point where I feel like I want an air tag on me somewhere just so somebody can constantly be aware of where I am. Because if they're not citizens, then none of us are citizens. If they came and got Andrew right now, say you're not a citizen. Oh, but wait, yes, I am. I have a passport. I can show you. Well, you don't get due process. So now you're just disappeared. So we have to consider it's not they, it's we. It's not them, it's us. Eventually, this problem is going to come to our front door. So that's my thought.
So good.
That's my thought.
So good. It already is. I appreciate that, sis. I mean, in places like Florida, where you have huge Haitian communities that have been displaced from Haiti because of the political discord there, and have been granted asylum under previous administrations and have now had it revoked from this administration, they are racially profiling. They are deciding whether or not you look like you belong here. By the way, a principle that used to be illegal in the United States, up until the U.S. Supreme Court majority determined that, racial profiling to determine whether or not a person is a citizen is just fine with them. The only other thing I would add, and I think you did so well with that, Tiffany, is to say at your local level. So the entire state of California has now banned federal agents coming in with masks. Mass individuals disappearing, to use your language, Tiffany, folks out of communities. You can push for local ordinances where you live. You got a local government that is sensitive to these human rights concerns. I am totally not shocked that there are now criminal elements who are deciding, we could just throw on some masks and go and get our enemies as well and lift them off the street. There's a reason why people got badges and badge numbers. There's a reason why they wear those things on their uniforms and display them for the public. It's a form of accountability in a democracy. And now we ought to be pushing for that same accountability, even for this agency. He is also completely right on the DHS, on the Homeland Security. The president, frankly, building his own army, domestic army, to carry out his wishes, while the military may have been frozen and didn't applaud for him, which is in practice the right thing, that the military is to be non-political, to respect the office of the presidency, but not to be partisans. So the president, that wasn't good enough for him. He wanted obeisance, applause, rowdiness in support of him. Well, now through his pin-up Noam and the force that she is building under the Department of Homeland Security, he is absolutely building his own domestic army, willing and prepared to do his bidding. And I think that's just a cautionary note that we all have to be aware of. But there are things I think we should be advocating for at our local levels, and that should be no masks. If you're an arresting official agency of the government, you ought to be able to have your name displayed and no masks.
On that, Andrew, again, Jasmine Crockett was on with us earlier this week, and she has a bill, the Clear ID Act, to prohibit people from being in law enforcement and wearing masks, approaching citizens or any human being on the street without having to properly identify yourself. And that begs the question of who is actually fighting for us and what do those fighters look like right now. So let's roll this question.
Okay, well, I know we have another viewer question. This one is actually specific to Angela, so I want to shift us so Angela can answer his question. Let's roll it.
My question, Angela, is does it serve a purpose to only call out people from the right that call our Justice Brown Jackson, who I think is genius, MVP Harris, DEI pitch, when it was actually candidate Biden and the Democratic Party that originally called him DEI pitch? Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it then candidate Biden, in his attempt to get the black vote, state that he would pick a black woman justice before even naming her name? And then it was the Democratic Party that turned around and urged candidate Biden to pick a black woman for VP. So would you agree that that was a mistake on the part of the Dems, actually naming the sex and the race before actually naming the name? Thank you.
Okay, so here's the thing that I just want to do here. I think it's so important. We, as Andrew said, we do not traffic in insignificance here, and we absolutely want to make sure that we traffic in fact checking. So it was not Joe Biden who began the DEI rhetoric. I don't know of any Democratic candidate, even there are Democratic Party strategists now who are saying that we spend too much time in DEI. And for those of you who missed it, spending too much time in DEI means spending too much time targeting the blacks. So we actually believe, and I won't say for y'all, but I believe in a moniker that the Congressional Black Caucus has long used: no permanent friends, no permanent enemies, just permanent interests. To that end, when Joe Biden became the nominee, the Democratic Party nominee in 2020, he was actually pushed to do some things. There were some key voices that urged him to not only pick a black woman vice president, to also pick a black woman as the Supreme Court justice, and to have a black agenda. That's not to pander. That's not because black people should only be janitors and car salesmen. It's actually because, believe it or not, there's some pretty badass black women that want these things, demanded these things. And I'm going to roll a little clip for y'all from 2020 from some badass black women who made these demands.
Vice President Biden, you need us. You owe us. Black women are miracle workers.
We have been saving the Democratic Party since 1965.
2020 is no different.
Your only path to victory is through black women.
The voters who need to turn out, we know how to mobilize them. Our votes must not be taken for granted.
The following commitments will begin to show black voters that you are serious about us.
America needs a black woman vice president.
Candidates like Amy Klobuchar will not energize us. America needs a black woman Supreme Court justice.
Remember Anita Hill? We do.
America needs more in a comprehensive black agenda.
The rules are rigged against our communities.
Whether we are talking about a black person who died of COVID-19 because of the lack of access to health care,
Or Ahmaud Arbery being killed by vigilantes.
Or Breonna Taylor, an EMT killed by police while laying in her bed. We deserve solutions that address systemic racism, economic injustice, and domestic terrorism.
Joe Biden, you enacted drug and crime laws that harmed the black community for generations.
Joe Biden, this must be addressed.
You must address our oppression and, most importantly, embrace our power to win the White House.
I mean, the only thing I would add, I think, I see your receipts, friend, and we appreciate. I know our listeners appreciate your receipts. I see that. I got a sweater.
Thank you. They're press-ons.
She's talking about the shirt.
I know. I like the shirt, but I like her nails.
Press-ons.
I'm going to get some.
Love it. So on this topic, it's just so Black people all the time, we ask, what are we getting for our support? What do we get? We're the most loyal, committed demographic to the Democratic Party. And what do we have to show for it? Just to go a little bit further back, we also made demands on Obama that he make that appointment, that final appointment that he had to the Supreme Court, a Black woman. He, of course, made a different choice. I hope we can see how regrettable that, whole thing was anyway. But to the point of us finally demanding something for the incredible and consistent, reliable support that Black folks, men and women, but led first by women, give to the Democratic Party. It was a very obvious observation to have made, to say, all the way up to this point, there is still not the perspective of a Black woman on the highest court in the land. Why? And that's a reasonable question to be asked. And by the way, the same question that people in other communities ask all the time when it comes to representation. And so the fact that he chose a Black woman, or a diversity inclusion hire still doesn't belie the fact that she's the baddest, most qualified, most outstanding justice I have ever seen on the United States Supreme Court. I'm a little biased because she's from Florida and Miami. But more than anything, she's also highly qualified. I would just caution our community not to accept this narrative that diversity, equity, inclusion means didn't deserve it.
That's right.
Didn't earn it.
That's right.
Or isn't qualified. That's what the other side wants us to believe about what it means when you say God damn it, a community is not represented. Their voice is not at the table. That doesn't mean get the most unqualified person without the proper credentials. No, that's what Trump does. That's why they've had to waive so many rules to get his people appointed who are not qualified. We're simply saying we want to be represented. And by the way, the best of us exists in droves. Choose one of us to represent at this particular level. So my only caution is, let's not accept their frame about what it means to have diverse workplaces, diverse leadership, diverse ownership, diverse anything. Diversity does not equal unqualified. Diversity means I need to see myself reflected, and you need a diversity of perspectives in order to see the whole picture more clearly. That's what we get through diversity of qualified people.
And I have a question, Andrew, because one, I echo everything you just said. And I'm thrilled always to see the machetes make their appearance on Native Land Pod. That was from an op-ed that we did for the Washington Post in 2020, and they asked us to do a video component. So thrilling to see the women, mostly those women are machetes anyway. So shout out to my sisters. But Andrew, when you're talking about like coming after us, diversity, equity, and inclusion, you were talking about on the call that there's this new piece of legislation, like essentially the Trump administration is coming after us and basically trying to re-qualify who's a domestic terrorist. It's so much trying to keep up with the news. Like every time it's a Trump administration,
it's a lot.
I always say it's like trying to catch confetti. I cannot keep up. So I had no idea what you were talking about. But you seem passionate about it, and you seem like this is something that has not gotten a lot of coverage.
It's true.
Yeah. So I'm the way you explained it made me nervous. So I want to hear more.
Well, I'll just say, and I don't want to take up too much of our time, but I just want our audience to really be aware that with all the stuff going on, and there is plenty of it for us to sop up, we don't need to miss the fact that Donald Trump, just this past week, issued a presidential memorandum. It's known as the National Security Presidential Memorandum, which shorthand is the NSPM 7. The National Security Presidential Memorandum 7 that came from Donald Trump. Now, what did that memorandum do? To put it in shorthand, it declares war on progressive or liberal infrastructure in this country. Its donors, its organizations and institutions, its individuals and staff who lead these organizations. Say, for instance, the NAACP. Say, for instance, Color of Change. Say, for instance, insert any nonprofit that you can name either locally or nationally that is doing work in service consistent with our values as a democracy, but more importantly, our issues and our values as people. Think Dream Defenders. Think, I don't know the tax status of Angela, of the State of the People, but if it were its own entity. Okay, so if there were a C3 and it was its own entity, it also is something that you can bring to mind. What the president is doing through this executive order is one, declaring war by basically deciding that these liberal, quote, liberal organizations, extremist organizations, as he would categorize them, exist to foment violence against the right. Again, that's simply their framing. They are targeting the left or liberal groups that they describe as liberal extremists, and determining these groups to be domestic terrorist organizations. Domestic terrorist organizations. What does it do to declare them domestic terrorist organizations? It opens up a panoply of resources at the federal level that can then be used to go after those groups. Who are those? What are those entities that it opens up? So first of all, let me just define the expanded definition that it's giving to extremism and domestic terrorism. It now includes anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, anti-Christianity.
Anti-capitalism?
Support for the overthrow of the United States government, extremism on migration, race, and gender, and hostility towards those who hold traditional American views on family, religion, and morality.
Oh my God.
Now, how much of that is subjective, first of all?
All of it.
And every bit
That
of
is
it,
so frightening.
every bit of it, protected speech. Every bit of it, part of protected speech of which any of us can have an opinion on, create an organization and an advocacy agenda around, all of that. So this is the new definition that they are now including when they are defining these extremist radical left groups who are now being targeted by the federal government. So Stephen Miller at the White House, we all know him as the deputy chief of staff, but he's kind of the man over everything, is going to play point on introducing this new domestic terror campaign that the administration is undertaking. But Stephen Miller is also the same person who is quoted as saying that it is violent political speech to call Donald Trump, wait for it, an authoritarian. So by virtue of calling him an authoritarian now qualifies as, again, this is why we said this is all subjective, qualifies as violent rhetoric. But I have another suggestion. This is Stephen Miller giving his eulogy or comments at Charlie Kirk's large memorial service. And I actually would submit that this is violent political rhetoric. Take a listen and let me know what you think.
We will prevail over the forces of wickedness and evil. They cannot imagine what they have awakened. They cannot conceive of the army that they have arisen in all of us. Because we stand for what is good, what is virtuous, what is noble. And to those trying to incite violence against us, those trying to foment hatred against us, what do you have? You have nothing. You are nothing. You are wickedness, you are jealousy, you are envy, you are hatred. You are nothing. You can build nothing. You can produce nothing. You can create nothing. We are the ones who build. We are the ones who create. We are the ones who lift up humanity. You thought you could kill Charlie Kirk? You have made him immortal. You have immortalized Charlie Kirk. And now millions will carry on his legacy. And we will devote the rest of our lives to finishing the causes for which Charlie gave his last measure of devotion. You cannot defeat us. You cannot slow us. You cannot stop us. You cannot deter us. We will carry Charlie and Erica in our heart every single day and fight that much harder because of what you did to us. You have no idea the dragon you have awakened. You have no idea how determined we will be to save this civilization, to save the West, to save this republic. Because our children are strong, and our grandchildren will be strong, and our children's children's children will be strong. And what will you leave behind? Nothing, nothing. To our enemies, you have nothing to give, you have nothing to offer, you have nothing to share, but bitterness. We have beauty, we have light, we have goodness, we have determination, we have vision, we have strength. We built the world that we inhabit now, generation by generation, and we will defend this world. We will defend goodness, we will defend light, we will defend virtue. You cannot terrify us, you cannot frighten us, you cannot threaten us, because we are on the side of goodness, we are on the side of God.
So they are enlisting to, as part of their assemblage of resources to go after these folks, they are assembling the United States Attorney General, who will play point on this, Homeland Security, the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS here of the government, and they are operationalizing what is known as the locally, well, actually across the country, is known as basically the terrorism coordinating body. That includes certain state officials and state offices. That includes over 2,200 employees of the Department of Justice, anti-terrorism units. It evokes at the state and the national level, all of the coordinating groups on anti-terrorism, and they are now all being charged to turn their energy not to real threats of terrorism in the United States. They are all now being directed to turn their attention to these leftist groups, extremist groups, who foment violence against the right.
Oh my God. They can start. Just so I'm clear, you're saying they can start arresting people. They can start. Okay. When you were talking about this on the call earlier, I don't think I fully understood the scope of what you were saying. This is actually, why this is not a breaking news banner across every news station. Why this is not A1 above the fold in every newspaper right now. I'm embarrassed and ashamed. I did not know about NSPS 7. This is a declaration of war on all. They could say NLP is targeting this can lead to mass arrest. This is COINTELPRO. This is McCarthyism.
Absolutely.
This is
and
terrifying.
for those of us who don't believe that it can happen, it has already happened in this country before. They didn't have the moniker. The difference is that the power of being able to declare these groups domestic terrorists unleashes a set of policies that were approved post 9/11 that were used by the Bush administration, the warrantless wiretapping, some of the other subterranean investigative tools that the government can use. It turns all of that operation on and now directs it to these, quote, enemies of the state that the Trump administration identifies. And I'll say one other thing, and I'll bring it to a close, which is this will entrust and basically now obligate the FBI's over 40,000 Joint Terrorism Task Force units to now become operational in the United States. It admonishes the Department of Justice to begin conducting interviews, investigations, and interrogations against employees, leaders, executive directors, presidents of these organizations, funders of these organizations. And by the way, some of these funders are big money donors, but some of these funders are regular people like you and me who are giving $20.20 every month. They now get to interrogate these individuals under this auspice to root out whether or not there is propaganda or speech within these organizations that has the ability to foment violence. The other thing that this thing is doing is it is not just solving a crime after a crime has happened. It is saying that their major goal is to prevent these violent actions from ever taking place. Now, what does that do? That means it becomes highly subjective, highly theorized by the government what they think your intention is. And then they get to then basically do the work to drive you toward that conclusion. Oh, well, we just averted a potential domestic terrorist event by keeping the state of the people from protesting against the death of citizen X, Y, and Z. So y'all, I don't want you to think that this is just going to impact people who are the big known names, who are the faces in which we recognize every day in or out. The truth is that Ahmaud Arbery or Breonna Taylor, they were just regular people before they weren't. They were. These are folks who are just living until they get on the wrong side of the opinion of the leader. So if you don't think autocracy has already taken hold in this country, if you don't think that the instruments of government are already being organized and leveraged against us, and through this memorandum with nobody to stop him or to hold him to account, and a Supreme Court who is complicit in this expedient move toward authoritarianism, we are about to be at this game by ourselves, y'all. So I want y'all to look it up, research it, learn more. I don't have the whole show to go through all of it, but just know that this thing is real, and it is believed by the reporting entities that work has already begun, that they have already begun on their targets to drive them toward this end.
They have. And I wanted to just flag one other thing. There was an executive memo with an accompanying executive order. And I want to be clear that the accompanying executive order is designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. And Antifa has always been an umbrella for anything they don't like, anything other. So absolutely. I just wanted to flag that this was on the other side of Charlie Kirk's murder. They now are trying to pin this on all things left. And we know left is a spectrum, and all of that now is being deemed violent to them. Yeah.
Angela, you're 1,000% right. I failed to mention the Antifa piece of this. They declare Antifa a terrorist organization.
Correct.
And y'all, you can Google it right now. There is no Antifa board. There's no Antifa president.
Antifa?
There's
But
no
it's an
Antifa
umbrella.
organization.
It's always been an umbrella.
Antifa is a theory. It is a theorem. It is a belief system. It is ideological. And that's the beauty of them identifying Antifa as the instrument, because they can go, just like they did during the Red Scare.
Yeah.
They can go and determine
1919.
any one of us as Antifa.
That is frightening.
Any one of us. Even though there doesn't even exist an organization such.
That is so
and
frightening.
That's the thing. That is the thing. So I wanted to make sure that we just are very clear about this. And please know, for those at home who are concerned about this, there is a memo guiding them through this type of policy. All of this is to keep us from focusing on the Epstein files. I just want to be very clear. He is doing everything. He is throwing the sink, the whole kitchen sink at everybody and anything to keep us focused on, not focused on the Epstein files. He's willing to defund the government, keep people out of work, prevent contractors from being paid, prevent your health care, make his friends richer. All of it keeps us away from what we know is at the heartbeat of this administration. And I'm sure there are of course there are other pieces.
Yeah,
we know that he is a puppeteer for, Project 2025 and all of that. But some of these pieces even go beyond what is in Project 2025. They do. It is a blueprint, but it's not the whole print. And I think we got to be clear about what it is. The reason, the pace, and how inflammatory they're being right now. Even the piece around the military the other day. Like all of that. Distraction.
Well, I think what you're referencing, Angela, is this quote unquote pep rally, this G.I. Joe nonsense that the Secretary of War, formerly Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, hosted this week. Always a bad idea to gather our generals from all across the country and put them in one place, but that happened this week. So much ridiculousness, we didn't have time to get to it. But I have to say, I think Epstein files or not, all these things would have still been happening. I think it was always a play to flood the zone with chaos and institute this authoritarian regime. And how frightening. I just want to say thank you, Andrew, for raising this. I would like to revisit this discussion if we can in the coming months, because I'm sure we'll start to see the victims of this incredibly draconian policy. And if this were happening in any other country, the way we would be covering it would be very different. So the fact that this is happening in America, I can't stress enough. Please get the F off your phones. Stop scrolling. Stop doing nothing. Like, the red line has been crossed. It is a fire right now. I can't tell you all what to do, but I at least want you to be aware. Closing your eyes and checking out doesn't mean that these things aren't happening. So this is frightening.
Tiff, to your point, your last point there, and I know we're moving on, it is that we all think that there's one day, like you turn on a light switch, it's dark and then it's light. That's how it's supposed to feel when we become what Trump is making us to be. The truth is that it's already here. Yep. The people in China, they go to restaurants. Yeah, they go to movies. They get on their phones and they get to commune with each other. But the truth is that we can still do all those things, except what about when you decide that you disagree with the government? Exactly. What happens when you decide that you want to know why you're being arrested? What happens when you decide to speak up against them coming for you and your country? Then you start to see the consequences of living in an authoritarian regime.
All right, we are way over time, so let's quickly get to our CTAs. Angela, you want to go first?
Okay, so for CTAs, Tiff, I need a second. I don't know. I'll think of something quick, though. I know we're out of overtime.
We're way over time, so I'm going to be really quick. I'll go. My CTA is there's an incredible organization called Prison Journalism, and it is a program that teaches the incarcerated how to be journalists. And so they write really amazing stories about their experience being imprisoned. Some of the stories are things like to avoid deportation, people want to stay longer at my prison. Another one is air conditioning is coming to Texas prisons, but not fast enough. Another is what my mornings are like in prison. I read this content because I can't take the influx of atrocities happening. And so I just want the men and women who are incarcerated to know you are not forgotten about. I read your stories. I encourage other people. You can go to prisonjournalism.com, I think is the website. They also have an Instagram handle. I have some friends who are on the board. And I was reading stories this week and thought, I should talk about this on Native Land. So that's my CTA. If you have family in prison, if you know anybody, please let them know that I said it. And if you happen to have access to our YouTube and watch NLP, just know that you are not forgotten about. I think about our brethren and sisters behind bars every day, especially since Angela recommended that I read Asada, which I'm still obsessed with. So think about that frequently. That's my CTA.
Rest
Andrew, what you got?
Absolutely. Rest in peace is a good one.
And power. I will simply ask and admonish you, please, please, please go and read or Google just N as in Nathan, SPM7. NSPM7. Look it up. We cannot be caught unawares. We need to know what's coming down. And especially because we are at the center of its target and its impact, we got to know. Google it.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. I think the only thing that I would challenge our audience with in this moment is during our live show, I asked folks to really contemplate why they are made for this moment. And I think it's something that we need to be asking ourselves every day. To Andrew's point, being caught unaware, to Tiff's point, feeling like you're trying to catch confetti. You have to constantly ask yourself, what gifts, what talents, what tools do you have? What time do you have to really try to meet this moment that we're in? It's just not one for us to rest on our laurels, and it doesn't mean that folks can't take a break. But I do think that this is a moment for mass action, and I'm hoping that everybody will join us in that. And you can start by joining us this upcoming weekend at CultureCon, where we will be live. And also, as Tiff said earlier in the show, you will also be able to catch it Monday if you can't get to New York on Saturday.
I'm looking forward to seeing y'all the most in New York, but hopefully looking forward to seeing our audience as well. As always, we want to remind everyone to please do leave us a review and subscribe to Native Land Pod. If you want to send in a video, question, comment, whatever, you can DM it to us and our Instagram handle at Native Land Pod. We're available on all podcast platforms and YouTube. So if you're looking for more shows like ours, please do check out Reason Choice Media Network, Politics with Jamel Hill, Machete member. Shout out to Jamel. Off the Cup with SE Cup. Not a Machete member, but shout out to SE anyway. And our newest edition, Now You Know, Noah Zebarasso. Give those shows a follow. Check them out. Let us know what you think. And please don't forget to follow us on all our social media to subscribe to our text or email list on nativelandpod.com. All your texts go directly to Angela Rice's personal phone, so be sure to give us a shout. We are your hosts, Tiffany Cross, Angela Gillum. Listen to me. Andrew Gillum.
I'll take it.
This is how rumors get started.
Andrew Gillum.
You are my actual family brother.
Yes.
You are my actual
Yes. He hyphenates. Andrew Gillum Rye. Okay.
It's a lot of misinformation being.
Gillum.
I mean, shame on me.
Jay, this is.
I'll have Gillum on rye, please. Can I get a Gillum on rye?
Exactly.
You guys, rye bread is really gross, by the way.
Toasted.
Ugh,
I like rye bread. I don't mind it.
Thanks.
Okay, there are 397 days until midterm elections. After everything we heard about NSPSM7, I hope I got that right, I'm extra concerned about midterms. That doesn't mean that we're laying down. We're going to fight everywhere we can, anytime we can. But reminding you guys how many days there are until midterm elections also warrants a reminder that our very democracy is under attack, as much of democracy as we've had the limited experience to endure here in America. All right. Welcome home, y'all. Thanks for tuning in.
Welcome home.
Oh, by the way, check out this week's mini pod. We have Dr. Joy. You know her from hosting therapy for Black girls. She's going to be the guest on our mini pod. We're going to also on our mini pod get some more of your viewer questions. Then we're going to talk a little bit about Serena Williams and Megyn Kelly. We didn't get to it this show, but that will be featured on our mini pod. So be sure to check us out. Welcome home, y'all.
Welcome home. Yep. Welcome home. Welcome home.
Thank you for joining the natives. Intentional with the info on all of the latest. Rod, Gillum, and Cross connected to the statements that you leave on our socials. Thank you sincerely for the patience. Reason for your choice is clear. We're so grateful. Took the oath to execute roles. Yeah, faithful. Preserve, defend, and protect the truth, even if painful. Welcome home to all of the natives. We thank you.
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media.